Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Faden, and I'm so grateful to get to spend this time together with you with my very special guest, Sister Karol Jackowski. But before we introduce Sister Karol, I want to do what we always do, which is take a few deep breaths together, just to get ourselves grounded and centered, especially me, since I'm really excited today. And just allowing ourselves to focus on our breathing, letting go of whatever happened before, whatever might be happening after you're tuning in. And as always, if you're in the car and you're listening, keep your eyes on the road, but you can still bring your awareness to your breath. And as you're bringing your attention more into this present moment, I'm just going to ask you to think about whatever it is that you would love to hear. What inspiration would really make a difference for you today? Whatever that might be, maybe you're looking for a way to feel lighter and more inspired and more connected. Whatever that is, let yourself just imagine for a moment that you've already received it and feel that energy, that gratitude. Knowing that the divine is right here, always wanting to meet us where we are and to bring forth that energy of inspiration and love and connection and whatever else it is that we need. So knowing that that's exactly what's going to be happening, let's take one more deep breath together in gratitude, and we can begin. Oh, thank you, my friends, for being here today. I'm so excited. If you tuned in last week, you know that I did a book review of this really awesome book called Sister Karol's Book of Spells, Blessings, and Folk Magic. And I promised you that this week we would get to talk to Sister Karol. Yay! And so today we're going to get to do that. So let me introduce you to Sister Karol. Sister Karol has been a sister since 1964. Currently a member of the Sisters for Christian Community. She's the author of 7 books, professor of creative writing at Bay Path University in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and spiritual director to all who ask for prayer. She lives now and forever in New York City. Please help me welcome Sister Karol. Hi, Sister Karol.
Hi, thanks.
I'm so excited that you could spend some time with us. I know that you're very busy. You have a lot of different things going on.
So fortunately right now we're all staying home. So you got me at a good time.
I know, right here in New York. I know I'm glad you're staying safe. I'm glad you're staying safe. So tell me, sister, who, you specialize in blessings and miracles and all kinds of things. What is your definition of a miracle?
Divine intervention. It's anything that happens that there's no other explanation other than it happened without us. It happened by divine intervention. For instance, I was telling you this morning, we almost couldn't do this because of the jackhammers outside. And the fact that they stopped in time for this interview is nothing short of divine intervention. So it's anything that happens for which there is no other explanation. Then it came from the divine.
I love that definition. Thank you very much. And one of the things I love about your book and the work that you're doing, at least for me, this is part of what I've gotten out of it, is this book has really helped me to be able to take the mundane and the ordinary, like jackhammers outside the window, and yet infuse that sense of sacred presence, that divine presence as well. Mm-hmm. So tell me, this book, I told when I sent out my book review, I said, this is the missing manual. If you're looking for how to create the sacred out of the ordinary, this is the missing manual. What was your inspiration for this book?
I think it was when I moved to New York City in 1981. It was the first time that I had lived anywhere where no one knew me and I didn't know anyone. I started my PhD at New York University. And I wasn't connected to any group. There were no sisters here that I knew. So I was like pretty much on my own. And I lived in one room in a brownstone in the West Village. My landlord was Jewish, so every Friday night they invited me downstairs to light the candles for the Shabbat. A woman who lived as one room above me was Buddhist. I was talking to somebody on the street about where do I get candles and incense? I needed all of my stuff.
Yeah.
Where do I get that in New York City? And they said Enchantments on 8th Street, which is a Wiccan supply store. I go to the supply store. The woman behind the counter is my neighbor across the street. And I start in New York City. It's what I love most about it is there are 275 different nationalities. There are 8 million of us, and we all get along.
Yeah.
Everybody is a minority in New York City. And you end up celebrating everybody's holidays because you know them. They're your friends. You know people. So I thought, we're all walking in the same direction. And people just have such different paths to get there. But everybody I met, whether it was the Jewish, the Buddhist, or the Wiccan, we all had the same thing in common, and that's taking the ordinary stuff of our life and tapping into the divine energy of that stuff. So I started thinking of my role as a sister much more differently in terms of the church is really the people of God, more than anything else for me now. We don't do it now because we can't get together, but we have Eucharist at the dining room table. We take turns presiding regardless of whose house we're in. So it was meeting, I think, all of those people that made me think that the spiritual path is much bigger than we tend to think about it.
Yeah.
And that if there's some way we can celebrate everybody's rituals, everybody's holidays, not just our own, but because they're all timed at the same time of the year anyhow.
Anyway, I know.
Celebrate at the same time. If we can do that, it just like breaks down all kinds of stuff. I mean, you're connected to them at a spirit level, where nothing else makes any difference. So my community became much more diverse. My prayer life became much richer. And I started collecting all of the things we did together. I wanted my own prayer book, which is what this book is.
Yeah.
And, then when I started doing that, people sort of started asking, well, I like this couple, this is an example, and I have this happen often, where a couple is trying to get pregnant. Doesn't work. They're doing in vitro. This is the last chance. What can they do? And the first time I did it, I thought, well, we could do the 7 Blessed Mother novena. And now this couple was Jewish. They didn't know anything about the Blessed Mother. But they had no problem with that image as being divine.
Yeah.
That the Mother of God would be the energy you would want to tap into to conceive. So I said, it's in the book, the baby spell is in the book, but I said, we're going to do this on Saturdays, 7 Saturdays. I'm going to do it at the same time. We'll both do it. And we'll see what happens. Well, don't you know? I mean, the kid's like, 21 now, but it's stuff like that once you make people realize you can do this, you've got this power in you. You can do this for yourself. You don't really need me.
Yeah.
We'll do it together the first time, but then you can do this for yourself, and you can also do this for other people. You can show other people how they can do this. So that's kind of how it got started. This is a manual of how you can take religion into your own hands and your own homes, because that's where it started in the first place. And if it's not there, then it's not really there.
Let's talk about that. Because it's such a different idea than what has been kind of drilled into people lately. that it's not about what's in your home. It's, you have to go to church and you can't do it yourself. I'm a huge advocate of the go directly to source, that you don't necessarily need the intermediary unless it's to learn. You know, you need to, the help to learn.
Yes,
and I do think there's power in people, you know, gathering together. But this idea, this is, you know, let's talk about folk magic. Let's talk about this idea of spirituality at home.
Yeah. You know, well, I grew up Catholic grade school, Catholic everything. But my family was Polish Catholic, which in common terms meant we're going to send you to their schools because they have the best education, but they're not going to teach us they're not going to tell us how to live. It's kind of that sense of, you know, we went to church in grade school because we had to, and we went before every class. But after we got out of grade school, we didn't go to church. You know, I wasn't connected to church in that way.
Right.
And at home, you know, we had stuff that Polish people grew up with as part. We had statues in our house. We had candles in our house. You know, we had rituals that we did for Christmas and Easter that involved the church, but they were part of home life. For instance, at Easter, we always took our Easter baskets to church to get them blessed. And it had a little bit of everything that was going to be on your Easter table. But it came back home.
Right.
So it was for the religion that happened at home. And I think that's where everything powerful happens anyhow. It's not in church. It happens at home. So, you know, I think there's stuff like we grew up with, you know, we celebrated the religious holidays, but they were much more a part of the way we celebrated them. You know, there was alcohol, there was, you know, just like it was celebrations. We had holy water founts at the front back door.
Yep.
You know, that we just impulsively dipped your hand in and
yep.
wiped around and walked out the door. You know, we had the priest come and bless our house once a year on the Feast of the Three Kings.
Yeah.
And it's all of that stuff that you sort of grew up with. Some of it was church. It was all stuff that had to do with the stuff that was in the house, which made it folk. I had someone tell me, this is an author friend who, Italy is background, grandmother in Italy, very devout Catholic, the family, not him so much. And when the spell book came out, you know, I said to him, I said, you're probably the last person in the world who would ever believe in stuff like this. And he said, well, let me tell you a story. He was in Italy visiting his grandmother, and his son, Nick, who was probably 3 at the time, had a fever of 105.
Oh, goodness.
Hours from any healthcare thing. His grandmother tells him to sit down at the kitchen table. She takes a glass of water, puts an egg in it, puts the glass on top of Nick's head. The water starts bubbling. She holds it there for 1 minute, takes it off. The fever is gone. She dumps the water in the sink, throws the egg out, and sits down and sits. He said he was about ready to faint. He said, Tara, I've never seen anything like. He said, I would not have believed it had I not seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't tell that story to everybody because they don't believe it's true, but I know you do.
Oh, yeah. I have Italian. My Italian grandmother,
yes,
totally.
Yes. When we think about our grandparents and all the kitchen rituals the grandmother had.
Yeah.
There, you know, there was. It's us. It's in us.
It's so interesting to me because, you know, I'm an interfaith minister, and I was living in New York when I went to the new seminary. And so I know exactly what you're talking about everybody's there in New York and everybody's holidays are happening, you know, all at the same time. I gravitate towards well, mysticism really in any tradition. It's that mysticism aspect, but I'm really drawn towards Hinduism and the path of yoga and mystical Catholicism, not what we see practice, but like the mystical aspect
Not
of
Roman.
yeah, like the saints, like all that stuff, like, or the Eastern Orthodox with the icons, and like I love all that stuff. And there's so much similarity between those two paths. I don't feel like I really understood Catholicism until I started understanding yoga, because I was like, oh, that's where that comes from. And this whole idea of folk magic and kitchen wisdom, that's what pujas are. The whole puja process is taking ordinary things like a little bit of rice, a piece of fruit, like things that you just have in your home. And these are people that wouldn't be able to go to the temple and do the fancy thing. So they do it at home in the kitchen, and that's their, and now puja is like this powerful practice that you can do.
You know, when it clicked
in the kitchen.
When it clicked for me is when I started thinking about, okay, if bread and wine can be made divine, if that could be turned into the body and blood of Christ, everything can.
Right.
Everything is capable of doing that. This computer is, this paper, everything can become sacred.
Yeah.
We can make that happen if you and I think it's the thing too of everything is energy. So everything has something we can tap into to sort of connect with. But when I thought that, okay, if this just happened to be bread and wine, it could also be mashed potatoes and meatloaf and whatever else is at the table. It could be this cup, it could be this candle, it could be this flower, it could be this, it's everything.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the word spells, because most people are, I think, scared of that word. And the difference, is there a difference between a spell, a blessing, a prayer? I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk a little bit about the ritual side of it. So let's just start with the word spells. I think it took a lot of courage for you to use that word, to be honest, because I think people associate it with negative things.
Mm-hmm. But to me, all three are the same.
All three are the same.
How you experience them.
Yeah.
You know, in the Wiccan tradition, they call it spells because what they are doing is they're inviting to stop by for a spell.
They're inviting the deity to come by.
We call them prayers and blessings. It's all the same. It's how we experiencing them and how we label them. But the activity is the same. The intent is the same. And the outcome, I think, is the same. It's just a different method. And I think we just have to get over the spell stuff. I mean, come on, 20. You know, read stuff, think about stuff. These are people who worship in nature. Nature is where they find their God.
Yeah.
They were there before any religion was there.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I'm with you, sister.
Ah.
So, the ritual aspect of things, because there's prayer, and a lot of times, you know, I'll meet people and they feel like they don't know how to pray. I'm like, how's it possible that you don't know how to pray? Because to me, prayer is just like talking to the divine.
Sure I am. Yeah.
But then they get caught up in like rules and stuff like that. But what I love in your book is that you talk about the ritual aspect, and what is it that makes a prayer and or a prayer a ritual prayer, and energetically, like, what's the difference, and how can we start to bring more of that in?
Okay. When I think of prayer, to me, it's a consciousness of what's on my mind. What thoughts are crossing my mind? And I do this every morning. I usually write in the morning and at night. So in the morning when I'm beginning, I can't write until I'm in a meditative state anyhow. So I think of what are the thoughts that are crossing my mind, and I give each one of those thoughts its own voice. Can say whatever it has to say, and I do that until there's nothing else to think about and the voice is quiet. And then that for me is the moment of prayer. That's when I begin to listen. Prayer for me is listening. It's not talking.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm doing or what I'm bringing. It's being able to listen to our own inner voice. And ritual for me is a way to pull in other energy, to focus on what I'm praying for. So, for instance, when, like a friend of mine, and this happens often, when people ask me for prayer, it's because there's already something they're already praying for something. Something's going on there already.
Right.
And what they want is to pull in this case, it was two other people, me and a third person. We wanted to do a power of 3 ritual. And so I developed the ritual, and it was things that are important to all of us. Candles, we had incense, we had whatever objects are sacred to you, and we all had statues of this was a Mary ritual, so we all had statues of Mary.
Right.
And there was something about calling in or tapping into the power of 3 and doing the same thing in our 3 different apartments at the same time that generates a different kind of energy than me by myself.
Right.
I could do a lot by I'm a solitary person anyhow, but there's something about pulling in the power of other, and you know this as a minister, that intensifies the power of the prayer. And that's what ritual does for me. It kind of intensifies what I'm asking for. It's not just I'm calling on the power in fire. I'm calling on the power in water. I'm calling on this saint. I'm calling on this angel. I'm calling on Mary. I'm pulling in all these energies. And ritual is a way to focus.
That's what I was going to say. The word I'm hearing is focus. It's really about bringing that focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Extra power. Kind of like that laser beam.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I will tell you that for me, and I'd shared this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, is I've been really wanting and needing the energy of a Sabbath, and then not giving it to myself and kind of leaving it up to chance. And would it be Saturday? Would it be Sunday? Would it be Monday? And like every week this would happen, and something would happen where the weekend would go by. And when I read your book and I read about the Friday night lighting the candle, I was like, I'm going to start doing this, because I know there's millions of people around the world that are also doing this. Exactly. And for me, it was like, I'm going to light this candle and I'm going to say this prayer that millions of people are saying, but I'm also telling the universe, like, I'm inviting in the energy of rest and rejuvenation for this amount of time. And it's really made such a huge difference for me, because it's not, now I've decided it in advance, it's going to happen this day. I'm not leaving it up to chance. And there's something about the energy in the room shifts every time I light the candle and say the prayer. It's pretty amazing.
Well, that's what I always say. Praying does nothing to the divinities. It changes us.
Yeah, really does.
Different. I don't know what it is or how to explain it. We feel different. We're not the same in the beginning as we are in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, I know you have several books, which I love that you have several books, bringing in that creative spirit. A lot of the people who listen to this podcast are what I call threefold souls. It's like the Hildegard of Bingen person who is interested in healing, interested in creativity, and interested in that direct connection, the mystical energy. And we tend to kind of be all of those things. Like, we're interested in whatever aspect is, and it sounds like you're really that way. So in your work, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing now. I know you're an author, you're also a spiritual director. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm. I think mostly it's kind of something that happened to me as a result of this book, where people will contact me through, like you do, through email or through the Facebook page, or people who know me. And it's something that they're at a point in their life where taking their spiritual life more seriously, that's where they are. And it often is relative to a specific request. Somebody will call and say, this is what's happening, will you pray with me? So that's the form that it takes. Now, some of the people I've been in contact with for 2 years now, You know, some of them it develops a relationship. But it's and I think it's the part of my life that I love. I mean, I teach writing and I love that because for me, that's spiritual direction anyhow, if you're teaching writers. And they're all adults, you know, so they've all got voices, they've got life experience, they've got something to say. But there's something about, I seize the opportunity when somebody says to me, will you pray for something? And I say, yes, but we'll do it together. That's an opportunity to say when we have finished that, okay, you know how to do this now.
Yeah.
Now you can do this for yourself and you can teach other people to do this. Practice it yourself. You know, I said, I've been doing this for 50 years. So it's like, breathe, but you know, it's part of the thing too of ritual is the more time you do it, you know, it's sort of like Christmas. It builds up in memory. That, you know, and it's the same way with rituals. The more time you spend repeating the same stuff over and over and over, it takes on another meaning and another meaning and another meaning. And that's sort of the aim for me in spiritual direction, is to help people make this a part of their lifestyle. You know, whenever they experience something that's confusing, chaotic, you can take a moment, you can light a candle, and in 5 minutes you'll feel, you know, shift the energy, pull yourself back. And I think when people ask for prayer, that's the turning point they're at. No, not just for this moment, but how can I make this part of my lifestyle?
So if people want to learn more about how to bring the sacred into their everyday life, that's something that they can contact you and you can help them with that. And it doesn't matter what background they come from.
No.
It's awesome. Yay. All right, Sister Karol. Well, if people want to find you, which I know they're going to want to find you, where would they find you?
On the Lower East Side of New York City, 165 Suffolk Street, apartment 4A. I've been home for 6 months. Probably you know, there's a website at karoljackowski.com, which I've neglected. So I would.
It's okay. So the place that you'd prefer people is through Facebook?
The place to go now is to my Facebook page, which is Sister Karol Jackowski. I also have a personal Facebook page. You can join both.
Okay.
You get a little different message. Or you can also email me at my karoljacko@aol.com.
So I'm going to put all the ways to connect with you in the show notes, but just to have it here, it would be facebook.com/the word sister spelled out, Sister Karol Jackowski, and Karol is spelled with a K. Or I'll also put in there her email address. And I highly recommend that you reach out to her and get in her circle and her energy. She posts some really cool stuff on Facebook and it's just really, really inspiring. Thank you so much, Sister Karol, for spending this time with us. I'm so grateful. And to everyone who's listening, I encourage you, if you didn't get the book, go get the book. It's
go get the book.
So helpful. It'll change your life. There's going to be so many prayers in here for just about everything, and it'll help you change your energy. And as always, we want to remember that the key to magnifying your miracles is to remember that your miracle is already here. Thanks so much, my friends. Bye-bye.